Is an interest in history a red flag? If your interest in history is deep drilling into Nazi philosophy and wearing their uniforms, then I might be worried. But if you're just keen on understanding the world, you're fine. In fact, the other person waved their own red flag in your face. I don't think that person knows what a red flag is. If this were true, then all historians and history teachers would have an extreme political bias, but it's not the case. I can just hear us as a species getting dumber every day. Depends on how that interest manifests itself, I guess. If a person just reads a lot of history books and watches documentaries and stuff, that doesn't really indicate anything. If they have a picture of Rommel as their profile pic, then yeah, that might be a problem. That's a red flag to get off Tinder. To me, it'd entirely depend on what sort of history a person is focused on and how they approach it. Which it doesn't sound like this person even asked about. I mean, if your interest in history is just collecting a bunch of Nazi memorabilia, then yeah, red flag. But for all I know, you're really into historical baking and you know how to make bomb 10th century cakes or something. That's not a red flag at all. Being interested in history isn't a red flag. Being ignorant and judgmental is. It depends on what kind of history they're interested in. A lot of mass shooters have a huge interest in Nazi history and memorabilia. If they just like history in general and don't focus on any specific country or time period, it really isn't a red flag. If their red flag has a funny looking symbol on it, yes. Otherwise, no. No? Not unless it's a specific country in Europe, in a specific period in the 1940s, and how said country should have won, and totally had the right idea. And if you just listen for a bit and maybe read. Willful ignorance is the red flag here. That is entirely dependent on the context. Your match was probably referring to a common theme of men being really invested in wars in military history, especially, and almost exclusively, the actual fighting styles, weapons, uses of violence, etc. Basically, they like guns and bombs and violence and are hyperfixated on it and the stereotypical hypermasculinity that surrounds those topics. The often surface-level obsession with violence and war can be a red flag. I have met a lot of men who had zero awareness of the actual politics and psychology of the times they talk about, and only care about the movie screen versions of history with war heroes and blood for honor and cool ways to hurt people. That's not to say having interests in war tactics or weapons is inherently bad or wrong. That stuff is actually very interesting. But there's a cognitive dissonance where it becomes toxic and detaches the humanity and reality from every historical event and makes it more about a pro-violent and hypernationalist agenda than the actual interest in studying history. My dad has always been into history. WW2 is his favorite by a mile. But he doesn't care about watching war footage. He watches a lot of Hitler's rise to power, of people behind the scenes, of concentration camps. We talked about it once, and he said he just wants to figure it all out, that he watches it and tries to understand how it could happen, that everyone should see and understand it too because it's so important and happens so easily. Generalizing anyone into history or wars is stupid. It just makes zero sense. But there is something to be said about what interests a person and why. What angles do they care about? If it's about understanding tragedy and watching how quickly things can change in front of our eyes, it isn't a bad thing. If it's about pounding our chests over the deaths of other people, it's worth a sideward glance. It's true. The instant I started to study the Civil War, I started thinking of ways to assassinate the president, planning to name my son John Booth and send him to theater school. Depends. I am interested in Neolithic and ancient civilizations. Also Britain from end of Rome to Henry VII. That doesn't mean I am an activist, fascist, extreme etc. That's an insane idea of a red flag. I'd say someone who is interested in history and the study of it is actually less likely to have extreme views. No. Extreme political views are an indicator of extreme political views. An interest in history by itself doesn't even indicate anything political. Unfriend. Swipe left, you see them again. And dodge the bullet because you matched with an idiot. Dumbest thing I have ever heard. No, but whoever espouses that view is probably a walking red flag.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.